Hey, I'm Merrill Williams, and I am probably by default a tobacco activist. I'm going to deal with two or three oxymoronic things that have to do with tobacco and health. And my purpose simply is to irritate three different divisions of the master settlement agreement. One, the lawyers who obviously don't really care, but they're there. And two, the ones that care because they probably would like to do something, but they don't, and they can't. Or the health advocates. And three, the the part that is somewhat interesting but loosely defined as the states. Now, I don't think you can irritate the states because the states are getting about $8 billion a year. That is the non-settling states, and then the others are getting a little bit more. But where I am concerned is in the sunshine, you get a little bit more of the disinfectant. So I have one oxymoron that I want to talk about on taxes in the tobacco industry and how the MSA affects this in some way and how it does not in some way. And so, first of all, here's the argument. If you can follow this, because I can't. I can, but I don't see the logic of it, first of all. And these are people who apparently know something about tobacco and they're interested in tobacco and health control nuts is what they used to be called. You can't find them now. No, you can't find them, and there's a reason for that. But here's the oxymoron on tax. The argument goes, don't tax cigarettes. I mean, they're nicely taxed now, but if you were to tax them, you might have an issue that is broader than the master settlement agreement, certainly more profound. So continue to tax them. I think New York State has a pretty good taxing system, on down to Kentucky, and I think West Virginia is pretty cheap, but nevertheless, from the amount of taxes. Here's the argument. Don't tax cigarettes because raising these taxes on the poor is not good, because that's about as tantamount to a terrible class warfare as you can get, other than having Mitt Romney's salary taken away and distributed among a number of people in Jamaica, which I would certainly support. So don't tax cigarettes, because you don't want to raise taxes on the poor, and that's essentially what you're doing. You're raising taxes on the poor when you raise taxes on cigarettes. Now, since the poor are targets, for sure, because it's my theory, and certainly everything bears this out, that the targets of the tobacco companies may not always, and certainly don't, at the very least, adults who are poor and stupid are the ones who smoke cigarettes. Now, being stupid is no problem, because there are quite a few of those, and I have to admit it's not hard to be stupid, because I think I'm pretty stupid right now doing this. There's no real good reason for it, because I can't think of a good opportunity or a good reason to irritate the three parts of this puzzle. On the other hand, they've irritated me, so I might as well irritate them. On the other hand, this is the point. So don't raise taxes. Don't tax cigarettes anymore because you're raising taxes on the poor. Now, the logic is that the poor are the targets. We know that. I know that. The tobacco industry knows that. Very few of the so-called previous tobacco activists, which are no longer around, I think. I don't hear too much. But, so, the point being, you gotta think in terms of the poor. So you don't want to raise the taxes because the poor people suffer. Now wait a minute. Poor people, that was what the MSA was right about, something about the Medicaid, and that was part of it. But since the poor are targets, and since the poor are stupid and dumb, and the poor are poor and stupid and dumb, and you can't get Mitt Romney to give over his money to or anyone else to give over their money to supporting these poor people. So the poor, and I'm only looking at this in terms of the United States because it's not true of other places, all places. But the theory is, don't raise taxes on poor because the poor can't afford it. So the poor, since they're targets, can't afford it, but the poor buy tobacco. Since the poor are part of the Medicaid system, maybe, and maybe not. But you would think that if they got really ill, and you don't kill people here with hammers like Monty Python, bring us your dead. I mean, you will eventually find that some of these people will develop lung cancer and coronary disease. So you're either going to have to do both, one or both, take care of them or bury them too. So the poor who buy tobacco don't need to be taxed anymore. Well, that's a just and fair argument. But, essentially they get taxed at the grocery store. We all are taxed at the grocery store. So poor and rich, whoever you are. But tobacco smokers are poor, and tobacco smokers buy tobacco. And poor people buy tobacco. So since this is true, the poor use the government health system as well, and that was what that MSA was supposed to be about, not about golf carts and additional funding for courts and people who are in the legal community or whatever. I know all this is different, but so the poor also die from this because they're targets and they're poor and they're stupid and they're poor and they're stupid and the people who smoke are too stupid. So poor and stupid equals, well, for cancer, maybe lung cancer, 5 years. 5 years of care in a Medicaid hospice, and then you got to bury them too because you spent all their money. Or you've taken the insurance policy, and usually that's not very truthful when you actually have poor. So, poor use the government health program, Medicaid, and the poor die from tobacco. So, the states pay for the funerals and pay for the health care, the hospice. And so we guess about a lung cancer victim might be about 80K, something like that. Now, if you figure it, and you figure it down to the penny, I don't know, but you're going to have coronaries that just suddenly don't cost you any money at all because you die right there. And remember, the killing fields for tobacco are full of silent deaths because they occur long after anyone really realizes or cares to realize. I mean, I don't trust the doctors at all. I don't trust the hospice and all the other people who are involved. Something to gain from everything in the tobacco business. So the poor die from tobacco. The states pay the funerals, and so they pay the hospice and the other. So what do we got here is unfair to raise taxes on a cigarette because poor people smoke more than rich people. If there were a middle class, which there isn't, poor people. Let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, so it's unfair to raise taxes because you'll affect the poor. Now, this is a universal argument by all these people, the groups that I mentioned, the lawyers, the health advocates who are, just living off the fat of the land, and then there's the states who were supposed to get money for Medicare, but they did get money, and they are getting money, and for another 12 years they'll get money, and maybe more than 12 years. But so it's unfair to raise the taxes in the states on the poor, raising taxes on the poor because they're the ones who smoke and therefore they're the targets. Of course they are. I mean, you think of children. All right, children are poor usually. They get cigarettes, and so young and poor, same thing. Okay. Now because you want to keep the taxes down, your excuse is that it makes the poor people, and also including those the people who are young and aren't rich yet, so they pay more, and it will kill them. I don't understand this. If you have time, figure it out for me, because if you are paying higher taxes on tobacco products, and that means you're unfair to the poor, because the poor are stupid and afford to take advantage of buying tobacco products because they are stupid, and tobacco monitors this behavior. If you're poor and you're stupid, you're going to basically be enfranchised so that you can buy tobacco products. And so this is universal, and I can guarantee you that if you're poor in another country, you may not buy tobacco because you can't afford it. So taxes will invariably affect the poor, and therefore it is wrong to tax them. Do you get the point? It's an oxymoron. It's oxymoronic to even think about this kind of thing. I mean, that is a conclusion which I hope to irritate a lot of people. It's also oxymoronic to share the idea that if cigarette sales are reduced, your payments to the states are reduced, which is my next oxymoronic take. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to walk in the sun and disappear into the dark, back into nowhere land. Here we go.